If you suffered from racial inequality, if you suffered from gender inequality, you would be completely justified in the fact that you are not achieving the things that other people who didn't have those disadvantages have achieved. And I say this as a white guy who was born in America to a doctor father. But at the same degree, you have the opportunity that Chris nor I have, which is that you can be an inspiration to people who went through the same thing. Because I can promise that there is somebody who has had it worse and has done it better.
If you're succeeding at a job that you hate, imagine how good you'd be at a job that you loved.
Let me state it this way. Will your belief that you're going to be viewed as a failure by your uncle be the sole reason that you live the rest of your life below your potential and regret everything that you don't do because of Uncle Tom? Because people say it's society, it's other people. It's like, it's usually one or two voices. And if you can get really specific on whose voice it is, then you can name it. And then like, I think I'm a big believer in like shame only exists in the shadows, which is like, once you put it in the light, you look at it and you're like, my mom? That was really it. Like when I really think about it, it's because it's not even just my mom, it's my mom in this circumstance. When I come back home for Thanksgiving, I just am so afraid of the comment that she's gonna make. It's like, well, what if we confront that? Okay, your mom, you sit down at Thanksgiving dinner and you haven't made money yet and you quit your job. Now what? Is that better than you spending the next 60 years hating her or resenting her for the fact that she held you back?
When you're starting out, by design, there are so few people looking at you that even if you do fail, no one fucking sees. The advantage of running a shit business that doesn't reach many people is that not many people saw your shit business.
People who are most successful, a lot of times, it's not that they necessarily have more willpower, they find other ways to reward themselves. And so he's like, the more skills you have, the more ways you have to reward yourself. People who don't have the skills of figuring out ways to reward themselves in the meantime can't make it the whole way. But that's like when you're doing cardio and you're like, okay, it's 5 times 5 to get out of here, right? You create micro games within the longer game to keep yourself going. And so that's why it's like the more ways you track, the more ways you can win. And then I think that's those little micro wins can keep you going over the long game that you have to just keep playing.
Most distractions come dressed as easy opportunities. This is interesting because as people begin to accumulate the success that they say that they want, this becomes an increasingly big problem.
The better you become, the more attractive the woman in the red dress is. And so you can say no to a 6, but what about a 7?
What about a 12?
Exactly. What about a hypothetical 1,000?
Yeah.
Right? Like that's really what it becomes, because there is no limit on the upside. And so that's why having like some of the soft stuff of like, this is the vision, this is what we're trying to do, and there's 100 other things I could do, but each of the cost of those things is the one thing that matters most. The difference between really successful people and the most successful people is that the most successful people say no to almost everything. Success comes down to doing the obvious thing for an extraordinary period of time without convincing yourself you're smarter than you are.
The first step to achieving a massive dream is conquering tiny impulses.
Like, did you get in front of the computer? Like, you have evidence, it's smaller evidence, but you have enough evidence to make the claim that you can do this. And then you do that enough times that you have enough evidence to make a claim that you can do this and support it. And I think that's where the big outcomes come from, lots of constrained tiny impulses of saying like, you know what, I'm gonna get this tiny victory and I know how to say no to that. I know to say no to heroin today.
So this is something that I've actually relied on a little bit myself. Whenever I get to a low point where I think, why do I even bother? I just remind myself, this is where most people stop, and this is why they don't win. And this relates to another one, which is a reminder for the gladiators in the arena who feel beat up and scarred with no hope in sight. Building a business is hard. Hard feels shitty. This is what hard feels like. And this is why most people can't do it, but you can.
Who here, before pledging started, was like, I want to be a part of this house? Who here thought it was going to be easy? Who here thought it would be hard? I'm like, guys, this is what hard feels like. This is normal. You wanted this thing, you expected it to be hard. Reality now matches conditions. Sorry, expectations now match conditions. This is what hard feels like.
Be so good at dealing with suffering that you can actually push yourself a little bit too far. And you go, I'm starting to bear more burden than I can basically take on. And the art of not burning out is something that I think a lot of people, if this resonates with you, the art of not burning out is something that you really, really need to be able to feel. And like realizing what happens when you just start to glance off the bottom side of it and go, okay, like I'm just going to ease off the gas a little. I need to take this afternoon to go sauna and get some sunshine and chill out and get some food, and then I can put my foot back on maybe a little bit tomorrow and we'll temper it. But it justifies the fact that, I use this stat all the time, 90% of podcasts don't make it past episode 3. And of the 90%, the 10% that do, 90% don't make it past episode 20. So by making 21 podcasts, you're in the top percentile of all podcasters ever in history. That's what hard feels like. And that's not even hard, it's just consistent. Fuck me, it's less than half a year.
Yeah. It is so easy to win. Most of the pain that people experience is purely in their own minds. And so what it really is they got a comment on a post that bugged them. And like, again, it's like pulling it from the shadows. It's like, no, this stuff doesn't work. It's like, hold on. What's the one voice that actually is coming through? What is the real thing? Well, there is this comment. Okay, great. It's embarrassing to even have to say that. But when you say it, then you admit it, and all of a sudden you put it in the light, and the shame kind of starts to evaporate. Because then you can name it and be like, is this comment bigger than my future? Is this comment bigger than me? What's true about this? And the next one is like, what if we confront it and say, like, what if they're right? Now what?
This is what hard feels like. Yeah. Most people get to this stage and they decide to stop. And now the bar is set so low. Yeah. Goggins said this in the episode with me, and it gave me chills when he said it. He was like, it's so easy to be successful nowadays because people are weak.
Yeah. You stay in poverty until you learn the first lesson of poverty, which is 2 words: my fault. If you can't define the inputs and outputs that are going to get you what you want, then there's no way to start, right? Because you don't know what you're supposed to do. You have to define what the input is that's going to get you the output you want. Now, once you know what that input output is, the next one is, why aren't you doing it, right? And so I think a lot of people are looking for something that is very hard to find. And then they attribute their lack of success or lack of action because they don't have passion or motivation. Sometimes your parents' dreams have to die in order for yours to live. And for me, I realized that the idea that my father had of me as his son, that image had to die in order for the image of myself that I wanted to be to live. Because I kept trying to quit my job and go be an entrepreneur. And every time I'd have the conversation, he'd be like, come over, we'll talk about it, we'll have dinner, you know what? And he'd always talk me off the ledge. It was always over and over again.
Good salesman.
Yeah. And so everybody has that person, or it might actually be somebody who's talking you off the ledge, or it might just be a voice in your head. It doesn't really matter, because that voice in person that only happened once or twice probably keeps talking to you when you're at home. I just knew, and this is the Tony Robbins quote, but it's just when the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change. And I think pain moves people far, far more effectively than pleasure does. Like, the easy way to prove it is like, point a gun at someone's head and you have absolute compliance and they will do what they need to do, right? Automatically, just like that. Like, death is the great motivator and the gun just reminds you. And so I think that if you can create the figurative gun to your head of the pain that you're experiencing, and then I'm a big fan of future casting out negative scenarios. So people talk about like positive visualization. I prefer negative visualization, which is, what if I keep doing what I'm currently doing for the next 10 years? What will my life look like then? And so if you know what the inputs outputs are of what you need to do, the guy who has the little quote on his wall, and you figure out whatever fuel you've got, not the one you wish you had, but the one you've got, and you use that to do the first input, you've crossed the line. You're in the game.
We sacrifice the thing we want for the thing that's supposed to get it. So we sacrifice freedom for money in the hopes that the money will give us freedom. Success is a strange thing. Presumably we want success because we think a more successful life will bring us more happiness, meaning and fulfillment. Here's the problem. We sacrifice the thing we want, happiness, for the thing which is supposed to get it, success. Failure can make you miserable, but I'm not sure that success will make you happy. And if you end up with an equation, if you could imagine, like, we sacrifice happiness to achieve success in the pursuit of happiness, like, if you just remove success from both sides of the equation, what are you left with? It's just happiness.
Equals happiness.
There are we can't deny the fact that we're statesful beings, that we require external validation. We can't just, go and live in a cave and in peaceful bliss and all the rest of it. Like, there are things that we need to do, but I do feel like a lot of the time we overclock our lives with regards to success and the pursuits that we go through in an attempt to do this. And that we sacrifice the thing we want for the thing which is supposed to get it.
And the thing is that most of the games worth playing are infinite. And so if you were trying to get in shape, you don't win getting in shape. The point is to stay in shape for the rest of your life. You don't win at marriage. The point is to stay married. You don't win at business. The point is to stay in business and keep doing business. So the point of the game is to keep playing. And so the point of success is to do the things that make you successful. And so if you're doing the things that are making you successful, then you are by definition winning. And I think that for me, redefining what is a perfect day and living as many of those days in a row as I possibly can, to me, that's winning. Shoot high, have a big thing that motivates, like have a big tiger behind you and stay on the path. What problem are we solving? If the problem that we're solving is that I want to be content, well, there's a lot of ways to do that. You don't need to do all these other things. If the problem you're solving is that you want to be the richest man in the world, well, you're going to have a lot of superiority complex. You're going to have a lot of crippling insecurity, and you're going to have a lot of impulse control, and you're going to have to wait a long time. Because if they wanted that, then that's the problem that they're solving for. Like, I get criticized all the time for work-life balance. People are like, well, you don't have any hobbies, Alex, and you don't whatever, right? And I'm like, I don't fucking want any. So why do I have to sacrifice things that I would prefer to do things I don't want to do to satisfy your objective measure of what you deem as work-life balance? Why? So many people want to project their idea of what they think your life should be like onto you. And it's just completely irrelevant. It just doesn't matter. Like, if all I did, if I weren't married, right? Because people are like, okay, well, he is married, and like, I am in shape, but I also just like working out. But if I didn't have either of those things, and all I did was work all day, more people would talk about the work-life balance thing for me than they currently do. And who cares? I fundamentally am like, you are going to die, and you're not going to matter, and I'm going to die, and I'm not going to matter. So why do I care about what you're going to say when you're not even going to show up to my funeral? Who gives a shit? Most people are trying to find the perfect answer when they have no perspective from which to make a judgment. They're trying to find the perfect thing to do when they haven't done anything. So how would you have perspective to make a judgment? Like, if you try a lot of things in the beginning, which you have to know what your inputs, outputs are, decrease your action threshold enough with either a cheese or a cat, whatever you need. Most people have more cats than they have cheese in the beginning. So use the cat to start running towards something. And the thing is the rat, it's so simple. It's like, there's cheese here. But what you really just need to know is that there's cheese out there. And there's a cat behind me for sure. And so if I just go anywhere away from the cat, I will have a higher likelihood of getting closer to the cheese. Not that I will find it, but I will get closer to it. It hurts to say, what if that person's better than me?
You gain nothing from underestimating your opponent.